Hey there, you fabulous folks. I hope your day has been absolutely awesome. We're back for another exciting episode of What If Naruto Was the Golden Devil. A big shout out to the amazing author behind this fanfiction, and show them some love. You'll find their details in the description box below. If this what if scenario is getting your imagination going, drop a comment down below and share your thoughts. And don't forget to explore more mind-blowing what ifs on the channel. Alright, without further ado, let's jump right into this video. It certainly has been a long time since we have crossed paths, Kaguya Uzumaki Lucifer. Letting out a soft laugh, Kaguya stared at the elderly man with black hair and violet eyes sitting across from her in a large living room with several desserts on the table between them. In the middle of the desserts was a large, decorated crystal ball that was the size of a small beach ball. It certainly has Zekram Bale. It is nice to see you're still as active as ever despite your old age. HMPH, this old devil still has a lot of life in him. Your appearance is still as breathtaking as it was back then. You certainly inherited your mother's unequaled beauty. A smile appeared on Zekram's face as he bowed his head in remembrance. Lord Lucifer was a lucky man to have won Lilith's heart, but I suppose she was the perfect devil to stand by his side. Thank you for your words, but that is enough talking about the past, Kaguya said before taking a sip from the teacup in her hands. You and your clan were certainly busy at the end of the Great War, haven't you? Taking advantage of the original Satan's deaths by making your house the de facto leader of the devils. I did what was necessary to maintain the balance within the underworld. Zekram replied firmly as the smile on his face turned into a frown as he lifted his head. With the death of your father and the other three Satans, the underworld needed a strong figurehead to rule, or it would have fallen apart. You and your brother didn't have any interest in taking control. Maybe so, but there was more to it than that, wasn't there? The smile on Kaguya's face also receded as she continued. If it wasn't for my intervention, you would have erased the four great clans from rule completely and marked the surviving members as kill on sight, removing all the possible opposition that would challenge you and your clan from becoming the rulers. Despite the numbers that sided with you in maintaining peace, most of the old Satan faction were not seen in a positive light. Removing you all from power was the only way the chaos would dwindle. Besides, it's not as if I removed the Lucifer clan or the other great clans from the history books. Zekram motioned for one of the servants to refill his empty teacup, doing his best to retain a cool gaze as he stared down the female super devil. With that impactful history your clan had. Even when you had gone into hiding, you still had a lot of say from within the shadows and were vocal on a great deal of rulings that I had made. Which is why I have no issue with that decision that you made to create the new four great Satans, though to be honest, the way that you left it, those four are just figureheads to please the masses. Kaguya said as the maid finished refilling Zekram's cup and moved over to her, pouring more tea into her empty cup. But why don't we get to the reason that I am here? With the revival of the Lucifer clan, the underworld is divided between us and the House of Baal. Exactly, and with the promise that your grandson displayed in his match against the third son of the House of Phoenix, it is almost certain that the remaining pillars that were once loyal to the Lucifer clan will flock to your clan once again. Zekram stated as the crystal ball between them glowed briefly before an image started to form and show the battle between Naruto and Razor. But the video didn't last as it switched to Naruto's battle with Cockabeel. Let us not forget his recent victory against the fallen angel Cockabeel with the holy sword Excalibur and the legendary holy artifact Avalon. Yes, his potential is truly frightening, especially since he harnesses the powers of both light and darkness, Kaguya said with an obvious amount of pride in her voice. I am sure you are aware of the fact that both Azazel and Michael have issued orders to leave him be, so neither of the opposing factions will have an issue with us. Zekram nodded his head. We must be thankful for that, though I originally had my doubts about your grandchildren, seeing as they were the half-breed children of the holy faction's paladin, one of the two strongest exorcists. Yes, I am very much aware of your previous actions involving Cleria Belial, Kaguya said as a powerful demonic aura started to seep off her shoulders, causing a small amount of sweat to fall down the side of Zekram's face, while the maids were slammed into the floor by the large amount of pressure filling the room, causing cracks to form around their bodies from the heavy impact. The lady of the Lucifer clan's eyes glowed as she glared at Zekram. So, allow me to give you this one, and only, warning, if you so much as touch a single hair or even think of harming my daughter, Minato, or my grandchildren, I will destroy you and the rest of the Baal clan. Now see here, what I did back then was necessary. To protect the status quo of the three factio, maybe so, but even someone as stubborn on traditions like you can see that those times are slowly becoming obsolete. I have already turned both Naruto and Mito into purebloods, seeing as Naruto is my heir while Mito is my secondary candidate should any happen to her brother. Kaguya interrupted as the teacup in her hand cracked, and the tea inside started to evaporate before it could seep through the cracks. Unlike my brother, I do value the lives of my family. So you can be sure that I will hold true to my promise, Zekram. It would very easy for me to leave Ria's, her family, and that other descendant of yours, Serjorg I believe his name was, as the only ones to have your family's blood coursing through their veins. Very well, you have my word that nothing will befall your family under the orders of anyone from the house of Baal or any devil connected to us. Zekram added the second part quickly, as he knew Kaguya would point out that loophole herself if he didn't say anything, and thankfully, his words seemed to please the super devil as the pressure and demonic aura dissipated, allowing both him and the panting maids behind him regain their breaths, letting a few seconds pass before he spoke up again. That display shows why your clan is still considered to be equals to the Baal clan as one of the remaining great kings. Though to be honest, I wasn't truly planning to do anything to the boy. It would be a waste to try and destroy a devil with such potential and promise. I can see that you are at least honest about that. Kaguya replied, making Zekram let out a laugh. The elderly man smirked as he leaned back in his seat. Age has done more to me than take away my youthful appearance. It has also given me an understanding to acknowledge those with exceptional abilities. The fact that you turned young Naruto into a pureblood only makes me happy to see that some traditions are still going to be followed despite his unique origin. That was due to certain circumstances. But it is not something that I regret. With each battle, regardless of whether it before or after he awoke in his true power, Naruto continued to grow stronger and stronger. Kaguya smirked as she watched the image of Naruto within the crystal, donning his twilight armor. This latest form that he used against Kakabil pushed his body to its limits, but I am positive that he will soon master it like his other armors. Speaking of his battle with Kakabil, I understand that he, Ria's Gremory, both of their peerages, and Sona Citri have learned the truth of God's death during the Great War. Zekram commented as the image on the screen shifted to Issei and Naruto making contact just before Kakabil's attack hit them, followed by the slight transformation of Naruto's armor. They certainly had their hands full, especially with those 3 sent by the church. 2 were reincarnated, correct, both wielders of holy swords. Kaguya nodded her head before answering, that's right. Zenovia, the wielder of Durandal, became Ria's second knight, while Gawain, the wielder of Galatine, became Naruto's first knight and his second evil piece. Apparently, both Zenovia and Gawain were kicked out because they learned the truth, while the third person was being looked after by the House of Citri and did not hear the truth. The church have always been fools in my opinion. Regardless of whether they learned the truth or not, they could have been powerful and useful to them. But it works in our favor since we were rewarded with 4 of their strongest weapons on our side. Zekram shook his head as a smirk appeared on his face, amusement reflecting in his eyes as something else caught his attention within the crystal ball, the very moment Naruto stabbed Kakabil through the chest. I am sure you are aware of it, but the 4 great Satans have been discussing your grandson's rank ever since he defeated Kakabil. Yes, I figured as much. It falls under the military accomplishments requirement if I'm not mistaken, so do you know what title they are giving him? They never did state what his rank was to begin with. Kaguya tilted her head in curiosity as she lowered her cracked teacup onto a small plate. Zekram shook his head at that. Unfortunately, it is still up in the air, but I can tell you that it will either be a Viscount or Count. Interesting, Kaguya, as she brought her hand up to her chin and shifted into a thinking pose, processing Zekram's words before a thought went through her mind. Tell me, how do you think Naruto stands if he were to go against the Baal clan's heir, Serjorg? A difficult question to answer. Why do you ask? Zekram questioned with a wary look on his face. Do you plan on challenging the Baal clan to regain complete control over the underworld? No, nothing of the sort. Kaguya shook her head negatively before she continued. With the way things are now, it would be reckless to suddenly take control from you. If there is one thing that I do agree with you on, it is that now isn't the time for the underworld to fall into chaos. Rather, now that the Lucifer clan has returned, we must both shoulder the responsibilities of ruling as the great kings, unless you have a problem with that. Even if I did, there is nothing that I could do to stop it. Not without the devil faction going through another civil war. Stubborn he may be on tradition and prideful he was of his clan's abilities. Zekram knew that what Kaguya had stated was correct, and the fate of the underworld was more important than the desires of the Baal to retain solo control. To answer your question, I believe that they would be evenly matched. Oh, I thought Serjorg was not able to use the power of destruction, unlike the rest of your clan. Unfortunately, yes, to my great disappointment, that boy cannot use the power that has been passed down out family for generations. But he has grown powerful thanks to the intensive training he has undergone to make up for it. In fact, he has gained the title of the strongest young devil because of it, and he has gained a powerful trump card because of it. Trump card, Kaguya repeated with a tilt of her head, only to shake her head with a sigh. I doubt you have any plans on telling me, do you? Come now, it wouldn't be smart to reveal what he can do to someone who can plan a way to counter his abilities, though I suppose your grandson does not need to worry as much when it comes to his unique magic and Excalibur. Zekram chuckled as he closed his eyes, a small smirk on his face as he spoke up one last time. I can give you this small piece of information. Serjorg has learned how to use Tauki. Tauki. Does that mean he can use Senjutsu? Kaguya asked with a small gasp of surprise. No, Zekram shook his head, making Kaguya let out a breath. Senjutsu was a very dangerous skill to learn, not only because it was a dangerous weapon for anyone it targeted, but also because it was known to drive users mad if they weren't properly trained for it. It was what people believed to be the reason for Kuroka turning on her king and killing him before going on the run, though that turned out not to be the case if what Naruto had told her was correct. It was through his intense training that Serjorg managed to figure out how to use it. I see. Kaguya closed her eyes in thought before shaking her head, making Zekram and the maids in the room look at her with curiosity. Changing the topic, have you and the Satans decided where you will be having the meeting with the other factions? The emotions on Zekram's face went completely serious as he let out a small grunt. Both Surzech and Serafal have confirmed a proper location that will act as the neutral zone for the meeting. As far as I know, they are currently waiting for Michael and Azazel to respond to their proposal. I see. Well, be sure to keep me informed, not just about the meeting, but about that other thing as well. Kaguya said as she rose to her feet, though Zekram remained in his seat as he watched the woman smile down at him. It has been a pleasure seeing you again, Zekram, and thank you for the warm hospitality. Please remember what we have talked about today. I'll be sure to keep an ear open for you and give similar instruction to the current leader of the House of Baal. Zekram replied as he watched Kaguya start to walk towards the room's exit. But please, next time you come here personally, let us know beforehand. I barely had time to prepare everything. Kaguya let out a laugh as the maids opened the doors for the Lucifer head, revealing several men, magical servant and soldiers of the Baal clan, laying on the ground outside. The area resembled a devastated battlefield with destroyed objects and cracked floorings and ceilings, and the men at Kaguya's feet were either unconscious, severely injured, or being looked after by the medical servants. My apologies, it has been a long time since I have done this sort of thing. I must be a little rusty. Truly, that woman deserves to be feared as a super devil, if not as the strongest of the four. Zekram thought to himself as he watched the doors close behind Kaguya, followed by a bright crimson glow through the cracks to show that Kaguya had teleported herself out of the mansion. Letting out a heavy breath, Zekram leaned his head back as he looked up at the ceiling. Bring me some of my best scotch. I get the feeling the next few days are going to be very long and troublesome. Of course, Zekram-sama. One of the maids replied as she bowed her head before leaving to carry out his orders, while the other maid left the room to assist with the cleanup on the other side of the doors, leaving the elderly man to his thoughts. Naruto Lucifer, to be honest, I never had any intention of doing the boy harm. He stated in front of the entire world that his goals for the Lucifer was to make it better than what it was centuries ago. But what exactly does that entail, I wonder? Even with how long it has been since the Lucifer clan and the other three clans had been in power, Zekram was one of the devils who could remember clearly how life had been back then, and how many deaths the Lucifer clan had been responsible for. Seeing the blonde Lucifer in action did remind him why the clan had been so infamous. But at the same time, he could see that there was something about the boy that made him differ greatly from his ancestor. Oh well, I suppose I must wait until the young devil's gathering before I can give any solid beliefs about him and his impact on the underworld. Movie theater hallway, explosions echoed throughout the hallway as Riaz fired another energy blast at Oretsuki, whose movements closely resembled a snake's as his body flexed and twisted far beyond any normal means. Coiling around one of the pillars in the hallway, Oretsuki's body came to a halt as Akeno fired her lightning at the area where he was about to reach and dodged the attack with a powerful leap. Twisting his body around with a small ball of fire appearing in his hand, the serpent-like devil unleashed a powerful fire attack that took the form of a serpent as it soared towards Rias with its fanged mouth wide open. Akeno quickly moved in front of Rias and summoned a barrier that stopped in its tracks and caused the flames to divide on either side of the barrier and slammed into the walls, leaving heavy burn marks behind that started to melt the walls. "Thank you, Akeno," Rias said to her queen as she kept her gaze focused on Oretsuki. "He's got more to him than I originally thought, being able to fight off both of us like this. There is something off about his body." Akeno had a small smile on her face as she nodded her head. "I agree, his body moves around like a snake while casting power spells at the same time. Hehahaha, I have spent years studying my brother's notes and enhancing my own abilities through experimentation and research." Oretsuki laughed as he watched the barrier in front of the two girls shine briefly before vanishing. "When he was alive, my brother had a large interest in his experimentations and what he could create from them. With the incredible results that he acquired before his death, I have made gigantic leaps in making our family stronger, as well as his former peerage." "Former peerage? Then that means you're not alone, Koneko-chan." Ria's eyes widened in shock as she realized that Oretsuki wasn't the only one they needed to worry about. She and the others must be fighting in the theater room. "Correct. Very well done, Ria's Gremory. It appears that you do not just have a beautiful face and attractive figure." Oretsuki laughed mockingly as he clapped his hands. "Truly, you are the younger sister of Lucifer. Yes, my subordinates are currently in battle with your peerage. My family isn't the only ones who desire the deaths of Kuroka and her sister. But that doesn't make sense. Koneko hasn't had any contact with her older sister ever since Black Cat Kuroka disappeared after killing your brother," Akeno stated as she transformed into her Priestess of Thunder mode, shifting her body into a defensive stance as she and Rias stared down Oretsuki. "I seriously doubt that she would suddenly appear now just because you attack her sister that she hasn't seen in years, especially after going mad from Senjutsu." Oretsuki let out a laugh at Akeno's words. "You've certainly done your research about Shiren's past, but not well enough it would seem." "What do you mean by that?" Rias questioned with narrow eyes. "Honestly, you children have no idea what that woman is capable of. Did you know that one of the abilities that Nekashu when they've mastered Senjutsu is the ability to change the flow of their kai, allowing them to be able to completely conceal their presence?" Oretsuki tilted his head to the side as he lifted and lowered his open hand as he spots the startled expressions on their faces. "That means that Kuroka could stand right next to you, and you wouldn't even realize it in time to stop her from attacking you, which she could have done at any time if she felt the need to after all. That woman is awfully protective of Shiren and has to make sure you aren't a threat to her little sister's safety." "You mean to tell me that Kuroka has been in this town the entire time?" Rias deduced worriedly at the thought of an SS-class stray devil was nearby, especially one who was said to have gone made with power. "So you didn't know?" Oretsuki grinned as he saw the distress on the two buxom girls' faces. "That is interesting. I would have thought that the Lucifer heir would have told you about it. He has crossed paths with her after all." "What? Naruto-kun has crossed paths with Kuroka? Several times to be exact. We only managed to figure that out after we finally tracked Kuroka to the location of this town. Well, anyways, I'm sure that those men will retrieve Shiren, and then the next phase of our plans will begin. To be honest though, I've been quite interested in your power, Ria's Gremory. The power of destruction, a power that was once exclusive to the Bale clan, otherwise known as the Great King." Oretsuki snickered as he brought a hand up to his face. "After that, we will be that much closer to getting our revenge." Ria's hands tightened into fists as her hair overshadowed the top half of her face, before she lifted her head to show a cool smile on her face. "It seems that I'll have to have a long talk with my fiancé once this battle is over. Akeno, would you like to join me later?" Ara, you know me so well, Bucho." Akeno replied with eyes closed and the small smile still on her face, one that quickly vanished as more lightning sparks covered her body as she opened her eyes to reveal the malice reflecting in her violet eyes. "I'm sure a few good volts will teach Naruto-kun to stop keeping secrets from us." "My thoughts exactly. But before we do," bringing her hands together in front of her, the power of destruction in her hands started to stretch as Rias shifted her stance, until she crossed her arms over her chest, with a large concentration of her demonic energy was focused into two shield-like domes over her hands and arms. This was something that Rias created from her training with Kushina, with some addition bonuses to her creation, I think this devil will make the perfect target to vent our frustrations, wouldn't you agree? Yes, I do. The lightning around Akeno took shape in her palms before she curled her fingers around them, making the lightning resemble whips. Riaz and Asya weren't the only ones to benefit from training, as Akeno had been forced by Kaguya to branch out from only using spells, and luckily for Akeno, the female Lucifer had taught her some techniques that worked well with her lightning and sadistic tendencies. I'm sure the others can handle themselves until we get there. Hey, Kabuto, what should we do with the rest of these wimps? The second largest figure in the group questioned, revealing it to be made as he turned his covered head to look at Kabuto. We're only here for the Nekomata, right? Kabuto chuckled as he brought a hand up to his face and pushed his glasses up. While that is true, I doubt the House of Bodhis would be happy with us causing even more trouble by killing the peerage members of both the House of Gremory and the Lucifer clan. Though I suppose we will have issues anyway for targeting Cheyenne, it would be best to just render them unconscious before taking her with us. Well, that's no fun, the cloaked figure on the other side of Kabuto said, his voice revealing himself to be another man as he turned to look up at the tallest member of the group. His hood fell back to reveal a man with straight white hair with a light blue tint to it and almond-shaped purple eyes, and as he continued to speak the others could see that he had pointed teeth. Don't you think so, Jugo? I would rather end this without killing anyone. The taller figure replied only for the shorter man to slam his open palm into Jugo's back, causing him to lean forward a bit and make the hood over his head fall back, revealing the tall man to be young and muscular with spiky orange hair and red-orange eyes. The facial expression of his face was an unusual calm as he glanced over at the white-haired man next to him. Did you really have to do that, Suigetsu? Oh, come on, you're not even a little excited. Suigetsu questioned only to get a blank expression as his answer. I like you better when you're in rage mode. Jugo-san, Koneko muttered to herself as she looked up at the orange-haired man, who glanced down at the girl with a blank expression. Koneko-chan, just who are these guys? Issei questioned as he felt his boosted gear activate its power and raise his power level, but his answer didn't come from the young girl. Raising an eyebrow, Kabuto spoke up. So you've acquired a new name, it seems, Cheyenne. I suppose that was to be expected that you would want to change it after what your sister did, though was it something that Ria's Gremory came up with, or was it more than that? Her sister, Issei, Mito and the others repeated in their heads, while Kiba moved in front of the still shaking Koneko in a protective manner. Why are you all here? Don't forget that Koneko is under the protection of Surzech Lucifer and the House of Gremory. Kiba shouted, making the rook look at her friend's back with an uneasy expression. Kiba-senpai. Look out, Koneko called out as one of the cloaked figures disappeared and reappeared to Kiba's left before charging at the blonde, who was quick enough to raise his sword and block the incoming strike, but wasn't prepared for the force behind it. Both Kiba and the figure sailed past the group and crashed through the nearby wall. Kiba, Issei called out in worry at the sudden attack against his friend. Suigetsu and the first cloaked man jumped down in front of the group, both preparing to attack with Suigetsu wielding a massive broadsword shaped like a giant butcher knife in hands, while the other had a bulky earth-like gauntlet covering his fist. Both Gawain and Zenovia were quick to intercept, as the former pushed back against the larger blade, while the ground under the female knight's feet cracked from the pressure. Gawain. Zenovia, this one is a lot stronger than he looks, Gawain commented with a small grin as he continued to push back against the pressure Suigetsu was putting on the blades. How are you doing, Zenovia? Zenovia narrowed her eyes as she felt her sword move back an inch. There is something strange about this one, senpai. He's showing no reaction to being in close contact with Durandal. Don't think that just because you two got holy swords you both have the advantage against any devil you fight. The cloaked man laughed as he raised his other arm to reveal another gauntlet that was raised high in the air before he slammed it into Zenovia's side, only for the blue-haired girl to duck under the fist and performed a high kick to her opponent's head, making the man grunt as his hood fell back, to reveal a large man with narrow slanted orange eyes and 3 tufts of orange hair on his head. Arg, looks like you're not just a chick with a powerful sword. This is going to be fun. We'll see about that, Zenovia replied as she leaped back, causing the man's fist to continue its descent and crashed into the flooring, causing a bunch of rubble to fly into the air. Jumping through the large hole left by Kiba and the one who attacked him, Zenovia called out to the group as the man followed after her. I'm going to lead him away to an open area. Hopefully I'll catch up to Kiba. Suigetsu let out a laugh as he leaned closer to Gawain's face. Looks like both Jirobo and Kimimaro have their fun destroying your comrades, which means that you are all mine. Don't think we'll make things that easy for you lot. We're a lot stronger than you think. Light magic started to swirl around Gawain's guillotine, making Suigetsu's eyes widen in shock as he recoiled back. But it wasn't enough as Gawain used his enhanced speed to disappear from Suigetsu's sight, and he reappeared behind the white-haired man with his sword drawn back. Everyone watched as Gawain swung his sword across Suigetsu's back, and to their surprise, after Gawain's sword sliced through Suigetsu's torso and the arm holding his sword, it remained divided and dripped like water. What the? Gawain-senpai. Suigetsu's from a clan that can liquefy and solidify themselves at will, Koneko called out as the severed arm still hovering in the air spun around and tried to slice the knight, who luckily heard the girl's warning and blocked the sword strike before it connected. Gawain let out a grunt as he watched Suigetsu's body reattach itself in mere seconds. But before anything else could be said, a morphed fist slammed into the side of his head, making Gawain's eyes widen in shock. The fist belonged to Jugo, whose skin darkened as his arm continued to morph until several holes formed around his elbow. Demonic energy exploded out of the holes and boosted the power of his punch as he sent Gawain flying through the wall. Piston Fist Style 1, Gawain, Asya worriedly shouted as she watched both Jugo and Suigetsu leap through the hole that Gawain was sent through. You go help him, Iya. The blonde girl turned her head to look at Issei in surprise at what he said. We don't know how strong these guys are, so having him face two people at once is dangerous. I'll go too, Asyane-chan, Mito shakily spoke up as she finally managed to gather herself together. All right, but please be safe, Issei-san, Asya said to the brunette before she and Mito started to make their way out of the theater, the former nun saying one last thing as she looked back. We'll be back soon, so please protect Koneko-chan until we all come back. I won't forgive you if something happened to her, Pervy-senpai, Mito added, not noticing the shadowy figure behind her. The cloaked figure behind the girls chuckled as he raised a dagger in the air. Aren't you two just adorable, leaving yourselves wide open? I don't think so, you bastard, Issei shouted as he punched the cloaked man's face with the boosted gear, the sacred gear calling out another boost as he sent the man crashing into the chairs at Kabuto's feet. The Gremory pawn smirked as he landed gracefully next to Koneko before shifting into a battle stance. We're going to be your opponents, right, Koneko-chan, Koneko-chan? The smirk on the brunette's face disappeared after getting no reply and turned his head to see that Koneko's body was shaking, as she seemed to be staring off into space with a frightened wide-eye look. Oh dear, it looks like the poor kitty cat is too afraid to fight, Kabuto said with a condescending grin on his face, while the cloaked man next to him rose back to his feet. Well, I suppose the traumatic events that she went through certainly left their impression. Though that the report stated that she lost all of her emotions, it is probably because of Ria's Gremory, but that makes things a lot more entertaining then. We can enjoy redestroying every single emotion she got back before killing her. Issei let out a growl as he narrowed his eyes. You're not landing a single hand on Koneko-chan. If you so much as think about it, I will break every single bone in your body. His words seemed to snap Koneko out of her internal crises as she looked up at Issei in surprise. Issei-senpai. Ooh, isn't that cute, Kabuto-sama? The figure next to the glasses-wearing man let out a chuckle before tossing of the cloak to reveal a thin, muscular young man with curly red hair wearing a brown coat and matching pants with no shirt, and a brown western hat with a white rose on the hatband. Blood was dripping out of his mouth as he rubbed the large bruise that Issei had dealt to his cheek, though it didn't seem to bother the man. The little kitten has made quite the friends, but I wonder how many of them know the truth about her. With her species history and her own murderer of a sister's actions, I wonder how they can trust a filthy, treacherous car like her. Species, history, what are you talking about? Issei questioned the two, finally having enough of the mysterious talk that had been going on since the enemy had shown up. Whatever it was, Kiba seemed to know about it. Oh, so you really don't know? Then allow me, Truma, former pawn to the deceased Sutairi Bodhis, tell you the truth. The red-headed man let out a giggle as he pointed at the silent Koneko. That girl behind you is more than the reincarnated devil that you know as Ria's Gremory's Rook. She is one of the only surviving members of the Nekashu bloodline, a special variant of the Nekomatas that was said to be the strongest of the species. Nekashu? Wait, aren't Nekomatas those cat-like yakais? Issei questioned as he remembered reading about some of the other factions that inhabited the supernatural world. Hey, after seeing both Riser and Naruto turn other species with their evil peace, he got curious on what else was out there. And it totally didn't have to do with finding potential buxom women for his future harem. Truma's grin grew large as he pointed at the young white-haired girl, who looked down at the ground as they listened to the red-headed devil continue. But that isn't all. She is also the sister of one of the most dangerous criminals of the underworld, one who is said to have gone mad with power before killing her master. Do you get it? That girl, no, that thing is related to murderous feline that killed my precious master. Seriously? Issei said in shock as he processed the man's words, while Koneko stared worriedly at Issei's back. Next theater over, sparks filled the air at various points in the room as two figures were barely seen as their weapons clashed several times. Kiba narrowed his eyes as he couldn't see his opponent's weapon due to the loose-fitting, long sleeve that covered his arms and hand completely, except for a strange white tip sticking out. Landing a good distance away from his opponent, Kiba returned to his default position with both hands on the handle of his sword, which was held in front of his body. The other man simply landed with a slight slouch of his shoulders before slowly straightening himself while lifting up his extended arm until it was completely horizontal, though the weapons was still being concealed from Kiba's sight. Just what is his weapon? It has an edge and tip, but doesn't feel like I'm clashing with a sword. Kiba tightened the grip he had on his sword as he glared at the still cloaked man standing opposite of him. Whatever it is going toe-to-toe with my holy demonic sword. I'm impressed, not many have been able to keep up with me. The man finally spoke up with what sounded like he genuinely impressed as he reached a hand up to the hood of his cloak. You must be Ria's Gremari's first knight and possessor of the sacred gear known as Demon Sword Creation, Kiba Yuyudo. A cool smile wormed itself on Kiba's face. It's been a long time since it was called that. The sacred gear goes by the name Sword Birth. So tell me, why are you all after Koneko-san now? It's been a long time since her sister killed your master before disappearing, not to mention that they haven't seen one another since then. You do have a point that they haven't made contact, but Oretsuki-sama and the rest of the House of Bodhis desire the Nekomata for their revenge. Pulling off the cloak with a tug, the man underneath was revealed to have pale skin and shoulder-length white hair that was divided down the middle on his head in a zigzag pattern and vivid green eyes. Located on his forehead were two scarlet dots inches over his eyebrows and eyeshadow the same scarlet color. The death of both that traitor Kuroka and Shiren are all we care about. Even if that means facing the wrath of not only two powerful houses, but one of the four great Satans. Kiba questioned as he took in the man's appearance, consisting of a light lavender, loose-fitting, long-sleeved shirt and black pants which cut off around mid-calf. There were bandages wrapped around his ankles, black boots, and a purple rope-like belt tied in an inverted bow around his waist. One thing that Kiba quickly noticed was that the man's expression didn't change or show any emotion to the mentions of Surzech or the two clans. It was almost as if he didn't have any emotions at all. As I stated a few seconds ago, all that matters to the House of Bodhis is getting our revenge. My name is Kimimaro, and I will be the one to end your life here. Kimimaro stated as he lifted his arm, causing his sleeve to droop down thanks to gravity, shocking Kiba as he finally got a good look at his opponent's weapon. I'm not surprised to see you so shocked. After all, it is not common for someone to be able to use their own bones as a weapon. Maybe, but that doesn't mean I'm going to let that distract me, Kiba shouted as he used his enhanced speed to appear behind Kimimaro with his sword arm crossed over his chest, slashing across the white-haired man's back. But instead of blood spraying into the air like he expected, Kiba was surprised to see several bones emerge from Kimimaro's shoulders and back, stretching out and blocking Kiba's attack with ease. What the? More bones emerged from other points of Kimimaro's body, while two blade-like ones grew out of the palms of his hands. Spinning with an incredible flexibility, Kimimaro poised to pierce Kiba's head. The first dance of the willow. Pulling his sword out of the bone's hold, Kiba summoned another sword in his free hand, this one resembling a black version of the holy demonic sword. With speeds untraceable by the human eye, Kiba did his best to intercept Kimimaro's barrage of attacks, blocking a large amount of them before feeling one pierce his side followed by the side of one slam into his cheek, sending him crashing into several movie chairs. The blonde knight was quick to get back on his feet, releasing the hold on his demon sword to press it against his wound. That speed and attack power, you're a knight too, huh? Correct. Kimimaro answered as the bone receded into his body, only for a thicker bone to emerge from his shoulder. I can make each one of my bones as strong as steel. And for every weapon I remove, with a strong pull, Kimimaro removed the bone to reveal that it had been transformed into a sword with a sharp edge. My body automatically creates another to take its place. So, we can both create as many weapons as we want and are both knights, but that won't stop me. Kiba narrowed his eyes as he shifted his stance, the holy demonic sword in his hands overflowing with power. I won't let you lay a single finger on Koneko, even if my bones are nearly indestructible. Against something that possesses holy energy will be very dangerous. Once again, bones emerged from Kimimara's body as he too shifted his stance, the emotionless expression still on his face as his body emitted a strange aura. I possess 5 dances. This battle will end once you've experienced them all. What is that energy coming from his body? It's given me a bad feeling. Kiba thought to himself before he and Kimimaro charged at each other with their swords raised. Whatever it is, I can't let this battle go on for too long. Meanwhile, I thought that he was just brute strength, but he's a lot faster than he looks. Zenovia muttered to herself as she glanced back to see Jirobo leap into the air, throwing off his cloak as he brought an open palm back. Crumbling palm, with a powerful leap, Zenovia managed to dodge the attack as Jirobo came crashing to the floor, causing a gigantic hole to form under his palm. Zenovia brought an arm up to block the dust and rubble from getting in her eyes as she landed on the floor. That much power in a single palm thrust. If that kind of attack made contact, then I'd be in trouble. HMPH, I guess that you knights are only good for running away. But I guess that's to be expected when going against a rook. Jirobo grinned as he leaped forward with his shoulder facing Zenovia as he drew closer. The blue-haired girl quickly raised her sword to block the attack from connecting. Zenovia's eyes widened as she felt the energy around Durandal decrease slightly, and the pressure of Jirobo's attack managed to push through her defense and ram into her. Especially one as strong as me. Thrusting shoulder, Zenovia was sent flying from the attack, letting out a groan as she backflipped to land safely on her feet. Glancing down at the Durandal in confusion, Zenovia's eyes widened as she saw the powerful aura that usually surrounded her sword had lessened slightly. You absorbed Durandal's power, so you noticed, I must admit, a meal like that leave a certain taste behind. I kinda like it. Jirobo grinned as he held up a hand to show a light golden glow hovering over his hand that was slowly converting to a dark blue as it entered his body. You have a lot of guts to call my Durandal a meal, Zenovia stated with a frown as she held up her sword with it positioned diagonally. I'm gonna enjoy wiping that smirk off your face. Oh really? Jirobo replied as he once again ran at her, this time throwing several punches that Zenovia dodged and used Durandal to block the blows that were inches from her head. The blue-haired girl jumped up as he threw another punch and landed on his extended arm, surprising the older man before he received a kick to the face that sent him flying back into the projector screen and tore through it. Landing on 2 of the seats, Zenovia kept her legs apart with 1 foot on the back of each chair, keeping her eyes focused on the torn hole. You might be stronger, but the speed of a knight is much greater. Not to mention that I am a swordswoman that prides herself on her strength, so don't underestimate me or Durandal. Zenovia called out while she could see movement coming from the other side of the hole and a hand grab onto the torn piece of the screen. Jirobo let out a grunt as he stepped through the hole, placing a hand on his neck and tilting his head to crack his neck. So maybe I was slightly wrong about you being all speed, but against the durability of a rook, you won't leave any major damage on me. Not to mention my ability to absorb energy and convert it into power boosts make the massive amount of power your sword has powerless. We'll see about that. Don't forget that you are still a devil. Leaping forward, Zenovia swung her sword at Jirobo, who brought up his right gauntlet to block the attack before countering with his left. Ducking under the incoming fist, Zenovia pulled Durandal back as she did a quick spin and moved to attack Jirobo from behind, only to stop with a small smirk as Jirobo had turned around to intercept her and disappeared from his sight. The mohawked man's eyes widened in surprise as he lost track of the girl, before he felt pain originate from his back and quickly swung a fist back slam it into the Durandal. The 2 of their weapons created sparks as the pressure and clashing energies that both Zenovia and Jirobo were unleashing circled around them. And a second later, the 2 devils took a step back at the same time before simultaneously attacking a barrage of strikes. Craters and slash marks surrounded the 2 as they either blocked one another's attacks or dodged completely. And after a few minutes had passed, both had received light injuries on various points of their bodies. Panting lightly as she ignored her injuries, Zenovia charged one more time with Durandal raised above her head, only for Jirobo to catch the blade between his hands with a laugh. Thanks. I needed a good meal to bring my strength back up. Erg, what the hell? The large man let go of the sword before taking a giant leap back, looking down at his hands to see that they were smoking and had heavy burns on the palms. How did it burn me? My ability should have turned that sword's power into my own. Your ability might be able to convert it into energy for you to use, but Durandal is still one of the strongest holy swords in existence, and filled with an immense amount of power. Zenovia explained as he pointed the blade at Jirobo. Just like Naruto and Gawain-senpai, I was born with a strong affinity for light/holy magic, so its powers don't bother me even now, but a normal devil like you is a different story. Durandal's holy power is poisonous for you, and it's basically too dangerous for you to even try to take its power. Keep trying, and you'll pay the price in the end. Jirobo narrowed his eyes as he glanced down at his hands, snapping his head up to look at Zenovia. Don't think that just because you have a holy sword, you can beat me. There are powers out there in the world that are stronger and more fearsome than you can imagine. Allow me to show you. Teaching into his back pocket, the large man seemed to reach in and grab something before pulling it out, opening his hand to reveal a capsule with a needle attached to it. This serum contains the results of our deceased master's research into senjutsu. Senjutsu, Zenovia repeated in confusion as she tried to recall any previous mentions of the word. I don't expect you to know what it is or what it is capable of, Jirobo stated as he crushed the glass covering the needle before lifting it to his neck and stabbed himself, activating the pressure switch to inject himself with the strange liquid. A few seconds passed as Zenovia surveyed her opponent for any reactions to the injection, and it seemed to have no effect on the smirking man, and then she felt a pulse of energy ripple off him. Now this is what I'm talking about. I didn't know that this power would be so amazing. I've never felt power like this before, Zenovia whispered to herself before tensing up as she charged forward, only for Jirobo's arm to intercept and grab her by the neck. So much faster. The grin on Jirobo's face grew savage as the whites of his eyes darkened before he slammed Zenovia into the ground, causing the ground to crack underneath her. The girl was shocked to feel her energy start to deplete even faster than earlier. Suddenly Jirobo started a run with her body still pressed against the flooring, before throwing her into a wall. It's no use, all of my physical and special abilities have been multiplied by 10 times. Tightening her grip on Durandal's hilt, Zenovia glared at the still transforming male devil. I can't let him get the upper hand, I just need to hold on for a little longer and find an opening. Separate theater hallway, damn it, just how strong is this guy? Suigetsu complained as he was once again cut by Galatine, but the knight didn't stay still for long as he dodged Jugo's attempt to strike him from behind. The orange-haired teen's arm morphed once again as his armored arm stretched out and grabbed tightly onto Gawain's leg, swinging him around and crashing him into several pillars and other movie promotional posters. Reforming his body, Suigetsu grinned as he lifted his large sword over his shoulder. That's good, Jugo, bring him over here. Right. Jugo called back as he tossed Gawain towards his white-haired comrade, only for several dark lavender chains to shoot out and wrap several times around both Suigetsu and Jugo, binding them and forcing Jugo to release Gawain from his hold, while Suigetsu was being held in midair by the chains. What the hell? Suigetsu shouted as he tried to escape by turning into water, but it seemed like the chains were preventing him from doing so. How do you like my adamantine hell chains? It's pretty badass, huh? A young, cocky female voice cheered, making the three turn their heads to see that the chains belonged to Mito and were originating from her back. Naruto-ne-san was right. Mito-chan, Tuya-san, and Karin-san are bad influences on you. Asya spoke up as she looked down at Mito with a frown. You're too young to be cursing, not to mention it isn't right. Mito turned her head to look back at Asya. Oh come on Asya-ne-chan, I'm a devil, I've got the excuse. Besides, mom does it all the time. That's beside the point. Suigetsu, Jugo, and Gawain all felt sweat drops drop the backs of their heads as they watched the comical conversation happening in front of them. Gawain shook his head as he decided to interrupt the two. Asya, Mito, I think that now isn't the time for this. Oh right, sorry Gawain. Asya replied with an embarrassed look on her face before bowing her head. This made Jugo and Suigetsu's sweat drops grow larger as the thinner of the two looked at his fellow devil. Are these kids seriously having a conversation in the middle of a battle? It would appear so, Jugo replied as he looked down at the chains holding him and Suigetsu. These chains are impressive, I can't break them in my current state. Then transform already, I can't do anything with these things wrapping me up so tightly, it's like they're sealing my abilities. Suigetsu stated with a frown on his face, a lone tooth poking out through his lips as he grumbled to himself. He was a powerful warrior and swordsman, not a freaking sexy piñata to be hung up wherever. I want to finish cutting that pretty boy up. Jugo simply closed his eyes as the markings on his body seemed to expand and cover more of his body, this time covering both arms and changing them into giant claws with a large hole on the back of each hand. It wasn't just his arms as several tubes emerged from his back and half of his face darkened like earlier, except this time there was a different set of emotions on his face, this one much more bloodthirsty. Now then, let's coat this place in their blood. Jugo's sudden shout caught the attention of the three younger devils as they snapped their heads in the direction of the voice, just in time to see the grinning Jugo put pressure on the chains holding him as a strange energy was bursting out of the holes. In mere seconds, the transformed man broke the chains holding him before grabbing onto the ones holding Suigetsu and ripped them off. Ha, too easy. No way. How did he break those chains? Mito gasped as Gawain positioned himself in front of both Mito and Asya, holding up his Excalibur Galatine in a protective manner. You need to be more careful, man. Not only did you rip the chains off, you also got some of my clothes too. Suigetsu pointed out as he patted the coat area around his stomach, which was torn off completely to reveal a torn purple shirt and his skin under that. Jugo grinned as he looked back at Suigetsu, letting out an insane laugh as he raised one of his giant claws and moved his fingers to crack them. You're lucky, I was trying to cut you up at the same time. Gee, maybe it isn't such a good idea for him to go into killer mode when Kimimaro isn't around. He's too unpredictable like this. Suigetsu thought to himself with a grimace, watching as Jugo continued to chuckle to himself. Oh well, as long as I don't get in the way he won't turn on me, hopefully. His appearance and personality are so different from before. Asya fearfully stated to Mito and Gawain, "Don't worry, Asyane-chan. The three of us can handle him if we work together," Mito said confidently, though if you were to look closely you could see the hesitation in her eyes. To their surprise, however, the transformation that Jugo had gone through quickly receded and the man returned to his former appearance. Why did you turn back?" Suigetsu questioned with wide eyes as he watched Jugo shift his attention from looking at Mito and Asya towards Gawain and then back to his comrade. "I refuse to fight." That was Jugo's only reply before he spun around and started walking away from the group, catching them all by surprise. "Huh," that was the unanimous reply to his words as everyone watched Jugo come to stop a good distance away from everyone and stood still near a wall. "Going by what will most likely happen, you will fight that swordsman," Jugo stated as he turned his gaze towards Asya and Mito, "leaving me to fight those two girls, especially that young redhead, which is something that I won't do." Mito's eyebrow twitched at that. "Wah, are you fucking serious? What do you mean you won't fight us, you sexist asshole? What, you don't think I'll give you a good fight or something? You think that just because we're girls we can't fight as good as a guy? See, calm down, Mito-chan, he didn't say that." Asya intervened as she held her younger sibling back from attacking the man. "It's no use, when Jugo's like this, he won't listen to anyone." Suigetsu spoke up, causing the others to turn to him in time to see him shrug his shoulders. "Don't take it personally. Jugo has always had a soft spot for kids. No matter what state he is in, he refuses to fight or kill children. It's always been his Achilles heel, if I remember right. That traitor Kuroka used to leave her sister with him to babysit whenever she had to go on a mission. But that means he was close to Koneko back then, right?" Mito clenched her hands into fists as she looked back at the silent Jugo. "So why is he okay with these guys trying to kill her?" "Who knows, though we shouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth," Gawain whispered as he focused his attention solely on Suigetsu, who had placed a hand on the hilt of his sword. "That just means that we won't have to worry about him attacking you both while I'm fighting this guy." "Maybe so, but he still seems dangerous," Asya replied before closing her eyes and creating a magical circle under her feet, the blonde girl mumbling a chant to herself as she pointed her hands at Gawain. A soft glow surrounded Gawain's body, causing him to lift one of his hands in confusion as the strange feeling before looking back at Asya, who had a smile on her face. "That was another enhancement spell that I learned. It will increase your defenses for the duration of your fight. So please, stay safe." A smile formed on Gawain's face as he nodded his head at his childhood friend's words. "Of course." "Thank you, Asya." As she watched Gawain turn around and start walking towards the waiting Suigetsu, Asya turned her head to see Mito looking up at her with a knowing and slightly teasing smirk. "Good job, Asyane-chan. Way to get some affection points." What are you talking about? I was just helping him out." The redness of Asya's face said otherwise. "Thank you for waiting. I honestly thought you would attack us while we were talking," Gawain commented as he secured the grip he had on his Excalibur Galatine, watching as Suigetsu had a small smirk on his face as he did the same with his execution blade. "Wouldn't have been much fun to attack you from behind, but now that you are ready." A battle aura surrounded Suigetsu as his left arm started to bulge and enlarge, the muscles in his arm twitching slightly at the change in mass. Suigetsu let out a laugh as he swung his sword around with his left arm. This time his movements were slightly faster, and put more pressure on the wind created by his swings. This is a special melee technique from my clan called the Great Water Arm. It takes moisture from other parts of my body and focuses it into my arm, and I have increased its strength to superhuman levels. Impressive. I can't wait to see how I stand against such a technique. Gawain replied as a battle aura surrounded him as his devil wings emerged. Not even a second later, the white-haired's enhanced arm bulged as he ran at Gawain with the large blade raised in the air, a large fanged grin on his face as he swung his sword down at the still Gawain. Kabuto, Koneko, and Truma stared at Issei, who went silent after hearing Truma finish telling him the story of Koneko's, whose original name was Shiren, past, and who exactly her sister was. From what Issei gathered from the red-headed man, Koneko's sister Kuroka had been the former bishop in their master Sutairi's Evil Peace set, and her magical power had been so great it surpassed Sutairi in every way. Apparently, her powers had become too much for her, and she went drunk with power before killing Sutairi, using her talent in two strange powers called Senjutsu and Yaojutsu, something that Issei would consider later. Issei had even heard what happened to Koneko after in regards to the devils killing off the remainder of the Nekomata race, except for a select few that had belonged to other devil houses and slash or part of their Evil Peace set, and had Koneko nearly executed before Surzets intervened and placed the catgirl in Ria's care. Hehehehe, look at him, Kabuto. Truma laughed gleefully as he used a hand to secure the hat on his head. He's so overcome by the story he's become a statue. Enough, Truma, we have our orders. The capture of Shiren to lure Kuroka out of hiding, or simply kill her to get the same results. Kabuto stated as his glasses glinted from the camera lighting in the dark room. Either way, I suggest you don't waste our time here, unless you want to face the wrath of both Oretsuki-sama and myself. The glasses-wearing man's words seemed to have their effect on Truma as a fearful look quickly replaced the gleeful one. Oh, of course not. Forgive me. I will carry out your orders right away. Pulling out a dagger from the inside of his coat, a dark grin formed on Truma's face as he turned his attention towards Koneko, who shifted into a defensive position. But even if I capture her, would it be all right if she had a few injuries here and there? I don't see why not, just make sure none of them are fatal. Kabuto replied with a shrug his shoulder and mocking grin, his attention moving to glance at the still silent Issei. It doesn't seem like you'll have much trouble with her friend. Now that he knows how dangerous and treacherous that her race is, he won't intervene. Truma's grin grew as he leaped into the air, one of his hands on his hat while his dagger was poised to strike Koneko as he drew closer to her. She's all mine. Maybe I'll cut of a Lego. Explosion. Eyes went wide as Issei appeared in front of Truma with his boosted gear gauntlet pulled back and an enraged look on his face before slamming his armored fist into Truma's face. And the strength behind the attack was so powerful that it snapped the red-headed man's neck before sending him crashing into a wall, creating a giant crater upon contact. Both Kabuto and Koneko watched as the broken corpse of Truma slid down the wall before turned their heads to look at Issei, who angrily held up his sacred gear in front of his face. I don't care what you think about her or the other Neko whatever they're called, Koneko-chan is one of my precious friends. I won't let any of you hurt her. Issei-senpai. A small blush formed on Koneko's face at Issei's declaration. Kabuto said nothing in response to the brunette's words as he silently walked over towards Truma's corpse, staring down at it with a blank face as he came to stop a foot away from it before kneeling. Running his hand over Truma's neck, Kabuto's eyes narrowed slightly at what his hand was feeling. That punch of his didn't just break Truma's neck. It completely snapped the spinal cord in two and shattered the half connected to the head before the fragments flew into Truma's brain. Killing him before he even hit the wall, Truma's body had been enhanced to even survive a half-hearted punch from Surtur II. The boosted gear truly deserves to be feared as a mid-tier Longinus. Finishing up his examination, Kabuto stood up and turned his head to look at Ria's pawn and rook. Impressive, you are certainly stronger than we originally believed, Hyodu. You've got yourselves to blame for taking forever with that long-ass story. It gave me plenty of time to increase the boosts in my sacred gear. Issei replied, closing his eyes as he took a deep breath before opening them to reveal the focus and determination in his eyes. I am the pawn of Ria's Gremory. I have trained with 3 of the sadistic trainers you could ever imagine, the worst part being that one is engaged to my king, so they had free rein in how to train me, and trust me, it is hell. But if there is one thing that I picked up from them, it's this. A devil doesn't need to be evil if they don't want to, but that also doesn't mean we have to play fair against assholes like you. Hehehehe, very true. When it comes to coming out the victor, Any method we chose to achieve it is acceptable, not that I had such honor to begin with a large sadistic look on his face. Demonic energy covered Kabuto's left hand as he kicked Truma's body at Issei, who was slightly shocked at the inhumane action before proceeding to knock the body away, only to be surprised by Truma's body suddenly moving on its own and wrapped its arms around Issei to hold him into place. What the hell, but I thought my attack killed him, Issei called out in shock as he struggled to escape the dead man's grip. Heh, this is my dead soul technique. With it, I can turn the dead into my puppets. Kabuto explained as he ran at the bound Issei with his demonic-covered hand poised to strike, the energy resembling a purple blade as he got closer to the brunette. You're dead, Issei's eyes could only widen as he watched Kabuto reach him in mere seconds with the strange technique covering his hand, reminding him of the ability that Naruto and the fallen angels possess with turning their energy into weapons. Kabuto's grin grew as his hand was about to touch Issei's head, but to his surprise, a petite hand grabbed the area around his elbow, making him turn to see that it belonged to a frowning Koneko. The small girl tightened the grip she had on Kabuto's arm before flipping over it, the strong grip holding strong as Koneko spun around the arm until it twisted off. But she was far from done as she delivered a powerful kick to the side of Kabuto's face, breaking his glasses in the process, before sending him flying through wall just under the projector hole. You already took one family away from me, I won't let you do it again, Koneko stated as she tossed Kabuto's severed arm away. Behind her, Truma's body released Issei from its hold and fell to the floor like a puppet with no strings. Turning around, Koneko rushed to Issei's side as the brunette let out a heavy exhale and placed a hand on his shoulder. Are you okay? Yeah, using all those boosts at once can be exhausting. But it's nothing compared to the amount I used against Cockabeel, so I should be fine. Issei answered the concerned girl's question with a smile before patting her head. Thanks for the assist. I can always count on you when things get rough. Koneko stared up at Issei with a surprised look for a few seconds before it was replaced with a smile. Of course. Like you could handle a single battle without any of us to back you up. You didn't have to say it like that. Issei's body slouched forward with blue, cartoonish lines waving above his body like a depressed anime character. That's like saying that I can't do anything on my own. I wouldn't say that. Koneko shook her head at the boosted gear wielder's words, making him turn to look at her. Just like with Naruto-senpai, you have grown a lot since you became a devil. One that Bucho, Akeno-senpai, Asya-senpai, Kiba-senpai, and Zenovia can count on when they need help, and that includes Naruto-senpai as well. Hehehaha, thanks Koneko-chan. Issei responded with a large grin on his face as he took in the white-haired girl's words, before a thought flashed through his mind, and the grin was replaced by a look of wonder. That reminds me, you're really one of those cat things, right? A Nekomata. Koneko paused as she looked down at the ground with a sad expression. Yeah, it's a species from the Yakai faction. I'm a Nekashu, which is a special variant of Nekomatas and the strongest among them. I didn't want you to find out about my past like this. Could be worse. I found out about Kiba's past after getting involved with the whole Excalibur chaos, Issei pointed out as he dismissed the smaller girl's words. Even then, I didn't know the whole story until after I was nearly cut in half by a former stray priest turned fallen angel and getting punished by Bucho. But there is one thing I am curious about since finding out you're a cat girl. Koneko tilted her head at that. Do you have cute kitty ears and a tail, like they do in cartoons? Asked in an excited voice only to receive a fist to the face by an embarrassed Koneko, who looked away with a side glance. I think that's enough conversation for now. The embarrassed look that Koneko had disappeared as she focused her attention on the hole under the projector screen, the light created from the machine shining a light through the hole. Kabuto is strong, he'll be up on his feet soon. Right, Issei nodded his head as he rubbed his bruised nose before shifting into a battle position. The sounds of something moving around violently beyond the hole could be heard, followed by the sounds of machine parts crashing and breaking apart before the light from the projector screen started to blink. A deformed silhouette formed in front of the lights, shadowy figures growing out of it and moving around with inhuman flexibility. Soon enough, a hand reached out and grabbed onto the opening of the hole, and Kabuto's figure could be seen through the blinking light, his appearance completely different from what it was originally. Well, I didn't a single kick would do that much damage. You've certainly grown from the little kitten that clinched to Kuroka's leg every chance you got. Hold on a moment. That's his left arm, but I thought you ripped it off. Issei questioned as he glanced down at the ground under Koneko's feet, where the dismembered arm was still lying on the floor. How does he have one now? Is it regeneration? No, Kabuto does have healing powers, but they can't allow him to regrow limbs that quickly. Koneko explained as she recalled what she could remember from her memories of Kabuto. Something else must be responsible for it, but what? It couldn't be. I see you still remember this power well, don't you, Shiren? Kabuto's voice as he stepped out of the projector's light to reveal that his appearance had changed. His slightly tanned skin turned pale white and had become scaly like that of a snake, mostly influencing the left side of his body, and was slowly making its way across the rest of his body. His hair that had been tied into a low ponytail was released and had grown longer and unkempt, while one of his eyes had turned yellow with the pupil now a slit and a purple marking around his eye. It must bring back so many memories. But that shouldn't be possible. Only yakais or those that have yakai bloodline inside them can harness the power of senjutsu. It is impossible for devils to use that power, Koneko stated as she looked at Kabuto's new appearance with fear present on her face. Kabuto let out a chuckle as he lifted up a hand to brush the newly grown hair away from covering his left eye. You of all people should know that Sutairi-sama put everything he had when it came to things that interested him. It was why he ordered Kuroka to learn it in the first place. She was his study subject. Holding out his right hand, Kabuto opened his palm to reveal 2 capsules with needles attached. One of them appeared to have already been used, while the second container still had a serum inside of it. This is the result of his research. It may not be complete, but thanks to this serum, it doesn't matter what species the person is, anyone can use senjutsu. So what? We can still take you down, it's 2 against 1. Issei retorted as he held his gauntlet hand out and was rewarded by a loud boost. Let's go, Koneko-chan, Koneko-chan. Getting no answer from the girl, the brunette turned his head to look at her and was shocked to see the horror on her face as her body trembled in fear. I've never seen her so scared before. Is senjutsu really that dangerous? Hehehehaha, you can try to play tough Shiren, but we both know what you are really feeling. And allow me to show you just how terrible this situation really is. Tossing the empty capsule away, Kabuto's smirk grew as he slammed the needle into his newly grown arm, causing it to bulge even more as the strange aura surrounding him grew even more. His laughter echoed and became more corrupt as his appearance once again started to change, as his cloak and clothing ripped off his body to reveal a long, white snake shooting out of his abdomen, which letting out a hiss before wrapping around his waist and rested behind him like a tail. Kabuto's skin turned even paler and scalier, while his eyes fully turned into yellow, snake-like irises and blackened sclera, as well as purple pigmentation around his eyes that extends down to his shoulder blades, and 4 horns grew on his head. A double dose of senjutsu, more than enough to take you down, Red Dragon Emperor. Like that scares me. Issei shouted as he brought his sacred gear close to his face. Ddrag, I am ready to accept the conditions. Are you sure? There will be no going back if you do, though given the circumstances I agree that it would be the best solution. Ddrag's voice replied as the boosted gear let out several pulses, making Issei slightly grimace, but did not complain as he nodded his head. Very well, my power is now yours to use, partner, but you can only use maximum amount for 10 seconds, so use it wisely. I understand, Issei thought as his gauntlet let out another boost, narrowing his eyes as Kabuto's body twisted slightly before charging towards them like a slithering snake about to strike down its victim. Just like before, Kabuto channeled his energy to form a blade over his hand and was about to strike Issei and Koneko down, only for the former to move directly in front of his female comrade and block the strike with his sacred gear. I hope you're ready to face a real dragon. How did you block that attack? Kabuto questioned with narrow eyes, pushing more pressure on his attack while Issei did his best to hold strong and push back. Senjutsu is one of the strongest powers within the supernatural world. A devil at your level shouldn't be able to block it so easily. Heh, maybe it isn't as strong as you think. Issei let out a chuckle as he grinned up at Kabuto, who frowned as he felt Issei's strength increase and was forced to jump back as the brunette swung his arm out. Summoning several small balls of energy in his hand, Issei cocked his arm back before slamming his fist into the tiny balls, only to shock both Kabuto and Koneko as several laser beams that moved around while bending several times as they headed towards Kabuto. Here's my newest attack based off the dragon shot. I call this my Welsh dragon volley. Kabuto's eyes shifted around as he tried to keep track on the various attacks coming at him from different angles. There's so many and moving in so many different directions, I can't follow them. The snake-like man's eyes widened as all the attacks hit him in multiple places at once, causing a large explosion to occur upon impact. Issei-senpai, where did you? Koneko could barely finish her sentence as Issei took a knee seconds later. Are you all right? I'm fine, that just took a little more out of me than I thought. I guess I need to get used to. Get back, Koneko-chan. Issei shouted as his armored arm wrapped around Koneko's body protectively as a snack shot out of the ground before opening its mouth. An energy-covered arm emerged from the mouth and stabbing Issei's shoulder that he used to cover Koneko. And RGH, are you okay? Issei-senpai. So that's what it was, I figured out your little trick. Kabuto's voice called out as the snake's head started to expand before it regurgitated an injured Kabuto, one of his horns blown off and the snake that had been attached to his stomach burned to a crisp. The slime-covered devil looked up at Issei with a smirk. That is a pretty risky move, sacrificing your arm like that. I've heard of dragonification in Sutairi-sama's books, but I never thought I would see it in person. Ripping out his hand from Issei's bloody shoulder, Kabuto smirked as he heard the teen let out a pain-filled shout before raising his other hand to create a larger, purple energy blade. It's too bad you would have made a good research subject. Too bad I'm going to kill you both in one strike. You're not touching a single hair on her head, Naya. Koneko's eyes opened in shock as she snapped her head up in time to see a black figure blur between Kabuto and her and Issei, surprising the man as he felt something pierce his chest and stab his heart. Coughing up a glob of blood, Kabuto slowly tilted his head down to see a familiar face looking up at him with emotionless eyes, while their energy-encased hand was wedged in his chest. I should have known you'd show up, here to protect her like a good big sister, Black Cat Kuroka. Kabuto let out a chuckle as he could feel a burning sensation coming from his impaled injury, blood pouring onto the floor as Kuroka ripped out her hand form the wound she created. Still as talented in senjutsu as ever, huh? Of course, don't forget it was because of me that your master even thought about learning how to acquire it. But this artificial method using drugs, focusing the power in her hand, an azure fire erupted from Kabuto's back and started to consume his body. It doesn't even compare to my power. The best way to defeat a senjutsu user is with another senjutsu user, and the one that is stronger will always overpower the weak. Just looking at this ugly form of yours makes me sick to my stomach, Naya. Coming from a traitor like you, Kabuto let out a cough of blood escape his mouth before he let out a laugh. Those words are like a giant compliment. You know that this isn't over, not by a long shot. Now that you've appeared out in the open like this, the House of Bodhis will never stop coming after you. It's too bad I can't see it. Those cold, emotionless eyes filled with despair as they kill your sister, and then your time is coming. Kuroka said nothing as she watched the flames consume the rest of Kabuto's body, slowly turning it to ash around her hand before it fell to the ground at her feet. Her yellow-amber eyes glowed with the power of senjutsu as she stared down at the ashes with a chilled gaze. As if I would ever let that happen, Naya. I'll just finish what I started and make the House of Bodhis officially extinct. With the sounds behind her making her large ears twitch, Kuroka turned her head to look back at the two that she had just saved, though her attention was only focused on one of them as she felt her body turn around completely to face them. Are you alright? Huh, oh yeah. What about you, Koneko-chan? How are your wounds doing? Issei questioned as he looked down at the injured girl to see that she wasn't even looking at him and was focusing all her attention on the mysterious woman that saved them. Koneko-chan, what are you doing here? There was a clear edge in Koneko's voice as she asked the woman that question. In fact, it surprised how much emotion the normal poker-faced girl was displaying. I came here to protect you, like I always have. Kuroka answered as she turned her body around completely to face the two, and if it were under normal circumstances, Issei would react to the revealing outfit she was wearing. Instead, he only held Koneko closer to his body as Kuroka took a step forward, catching the petite cat-eared girl by surprise. The brunette didn't reply as he felt a bead of sweat fall down his cheek as he stared at Kuroka as the woman continued to walk towards them. This woman is dangerous. Every part of my body is telling me that. But still, I can't let myself lose a nerve now. I have to protect Koneko-chan. So, you're the new wielder of boosted gear, you don't have to be so tense around me. Kuroka stated as she stopped a foot away from them before kneeling to their level with a smirk. As much as I don't like devils, I would never hurt my little Shiren, Naya. Huh. Shiren, Issei repeated in confusion until he remembered that was what Kabuto had called Koneko earlier. That's right, she is my baby sister after all. Kuroka said with a teasing grin as she snatched the white-haired girl from Issei's grip before he even realized it, before standing up straight. Now come on, we need to meet up with Naruto and the others. I think they're finishing up as we speak. With that said, Kuroka walked off with the struggling Koneko still trying to escape her hold. Issei blinked a few times at this before his mouth dropped. What, how, why? I have so many questions. Meanwhile, almost the entire room had been destroyed from the battle between the knight and rook. Zenobia was panting hard as she used Durandal as she glared at Jirobo's silhouette, standing in a dust cloud, noticeable changes of his figure visible to the girl. I can't believe he got this strong from just injecting himself with that needle. To think you managed to force me to inject myself with senjutsu, Kabuto said it was dangerous, but it seems to be doing a hell of a job. Jirobo's voice called out as his figure walked through the dust until he used a hand to dismiss it, revealing his new appearance. His skin had turned into brownish-reddish color, while his mohawk grew into a long spiky mane that reached his shoulders, and the irises his eyes turned yellow with dark black eye sclera. Various warts grew all over his body, with the most prominent on his face, shoulders, and forehead. With this form, all of your chances of coming out of this alive have been reduced to 0. Senjutsu. Why does that sound so familiar? Zenobia thought to herself as she lifted her sword off the ground. It doesn't matter though, if this keeps up I just need to be patient. That much power in his body must leave a strain on his body. If I can just land one decent blow, I know he won't be able to recover. Luckily, all of his absorbing of Durandal's power has made it easier for me to wield it. Hess, you really want to continue fighting. Fine by me, but I won't make your death a quick one. I'm gonna make it as painful as possible. Jirobo laughed as he cracked his knuckles through his gauntlets before leaping into the air with his hands already in a downward thrust position. I'll break your arms and legs first. Take this, pressure palm. Zenovia's eyes widened as the large man was airborne as seemingly stood still in shock as the man's attack reached inches away from her face, and a giant explosion echoed throughout the room and destroyed any of the furniture that had survived up till that point. For the first few seconds, Jirobo had a large savage grin on his face as he thought that his attack had landed, but it instantly disappeared when the dust dispersed to reveal that there was no one under his hands. What the hell, but how argh? Zenobia had a small smirk on her face as she watched one of Jirobo's arm go flying. It is just like you said, Knight are well known for our speed. I might not be as fast as Kiba-san, but I can easily dodge blows as slow as yours. Damn you, you bitch, Jirobo roared as he held the bloody stump that used to be his left hand. To be honest, I should be thanking you. Durandal is a very powerful holy sword, equaled Excalibur Galatine when it comes to both power and abilities. To be honest, I am limited to how long I maintain control over Durandal in battle without it overwhelming me. Zenobia explained as she shifted her stance to have the blue and golden sword poised in front of her. That's why I usually keep it sealed in a different dimension until I need it, but thanks to you absorbing so much of its power, it is temporarily at a level that won't give me any trouble. So, that's what you meant before about paying the price for trying to absorb its power. Jirobo snarled as the energy surrounding him grew larger, and the flow blood coming from his stump increasing as he tightened his grip. It wasn't just the holy magic poisoning from the inside, this was what you were talking about too. Zenobia braced herself as she watched Jirobo charge up as much energy as he could before he rushed towards her, only to be shocked by the larger man halting his actions almost immediately to start a coughing fit. Blood spraying out of his mouth with each cough he let out before once again clutching the bloody stump, which was starting to deform and golden cracks grew. What is happening? NN knew it can't be but I thought, what is going on? Zenobia thought to herself as she watched Jirobo let out a painful shout as his body continued to deform, his arm growing briefly before shrinking while the warts started to crack and blood dripped from his eyes. Taking in a quick, deep breath to clear her mind, Zenobia tightened her grip on Durandal's hilt, ignoring the pain coming from her ribs and left leg. I can't let this opening slip past me. It's time to end this. Just try it. Rock attack, Jirobo growled as he let go of the blood remains of his stump to bring his remaining arm back before tightening his hand into a fist, only for his body to freeze up as the cracks seemed to stretch out across his body even more. No, the senjutsu energy is my body. The transformed devil could continue his thoughts as Zenobia appeared in front of him with her sword drawn back. You're done, delivering a large diagonal slice across his chest as she moved past him. Zenobia suddenly fell to one knee as she looked down to see Jirobo's second fist had broken off and was lodged in her side, though it quickly disintegrated into dust and dispersed into the air, leaving no trace of behind. Weakly turned her head back to look at Jirobo. The female knight could see the look of rage and fear on his face, as he stared down at the glowing cut that Zenovia had left on his body as it started to grow brighter by the second. Suddenly, Jirobo's body started to puff up and resemble a humanoid balloon. It seems that whatever energy he had injected into himself was not reacting well with his body and had been slowly killing it from the inside. And the additional energy absorbed from Durandal, combined with Zenovia's final attack, had pushed Jirobo past his body's limit. How is this happening? I thought he said that Sudayori-sama's research was complete. Damn him. He lied to me. Jirobo gritted his teeth as he realized that he had been used as a test subject. He could feel the magic inside of his body was seconds away from exploding, and death was merely seconds away. Only one thing was going through his mind before his body blew up in a powerful explosion. Damn you to hell, Oretsuki. I can't get away. Zenovia let out a groan as she tried to move her body to escape the explosion, but the pain in her ribs were making it extremely difficult for her to move. Suddenly, Zenovia felt someone grab onto her before she and the figure vanished before the explosion covered the entire room. Reappearing outside of the room while the explosive energy dissipated, the wielder of Durandal looked up to see a familiar face standing over her. Arcuid-san, hey there Zenovia. Do you remember which theater room our movie was supposed to be in? Arcuid cheerfully asked to the injured girl, who couldn't help but sweat drop at the White Queen's behavior. Another face made her appearance as Len stuck her head out over Arcuid's shoulder, though Zenovia noticed that there was a decent-sized lump at the top of her head. I was punishing Len for eating all of my popcorn and got lost. I'm really excited since I haven't been to the movies in a long time. Arcuid-san, you do sense that we're in the middle of a battle, right? The sweat drop on the back of Zenovia's head grew as she watched the true ancestor's appearance resembled that of a cat as she tilted her head at the swordswoman's question. There are enemies all over the place, and they seem to be after Koneko. Oh, that! Arcuid took a realization pose with her fist bopping into her palm while Len was copying her actions behind her. Don't you worry about that, it seems that the guy in charge has ordered a retreat. Really? Yeah, so don't worry, you can just relax now, Arcuid said with a small smile on her face as she felt Zenovia's body fall forward into her arms, the blue-haired girl losing her balance from the exhaustion and pain she felt from the battle. The smile on the true ancestor's face turned serious as she took one of Zenovia's arms and looped it around her neck to hold the girl up. I'm actually surprised you managed to stand up to him till the very end. Even if is incomplete, the senjutsu he acquired was by no means weak, but I suppose it was because his body wasn't compatible for it that ended up killing him. Zenovia looked down at the ground with a frown. If that is the case, then can I really call this battle a victory? Did my final blow even count in the end? I am not going to lie to you and say that you would have won easily, even if you did figure out a way to defeat him. Arcuid answered as she started walking to the area where she could sense the others' presences. There is a chance you could have died. I am not saying you aren't strong, but senjutsu is on a completely different level than what you and the others are used to. For now, take this victory with pride since you managed to come out of the battle alive. Thank you, we should inform the others about what happened, Zenovia stated as she dismissed Durandal back to its dimension. I don't know what this senjutsu is exactly, but they should know about its existence and what it can do. Agreed, now hold on tight. I'll get us back to the others so Asya can heal you. Movie theater hallway, he sure was slippery, isn't he, Bucho? Akeno commented with a satisfied smile at the fact that one of her whips was wrapped tightly around Oretsuki's body, though thanks to her control the whips were electrocuting him without her say-so. Both she and Rias were currently doing their best to regain their breaths after the long battle, their outfits having several rips and tears, with the damage being worst for Akeno. Rias nodded her head as she dismissed the shields over her arms. Yes, he was, but no, we have him where we want him. Time for some interrogation. Ha, interrogation, you. Sorry to disappoint you, but I've only been playing with you both. With that said, Oretsuki's damaged body started to tremble before he opened his mouth, and to the shock and disgust of the girls, 2 hands emerged from the mouth followed by a body. The body turned out to be a completely healed Oretsuki. Even his clothes had been restored to their original condition. I am on a completely different level than what you have faced in the past. Allow me to show you. Akeno was shocked as Oretsuki slithered towards them at speeds equal to that of a knight's, probably even more so, and appeared between the both girl with a bunch of serpents surrounding his arm. Wrapping themselves around Akeno in a tight and slightly provocative manner, the snakes let out hisses before opening their mouths to reveal their poisonous fangs with the venom slowly dripping down their pointed teeth. They watched as one of the venom drips hit the floor and caused smoke to appear from the acid-like liquid hitting the carpet-covered concrete. Akeno, Riaz called out worriedly as she tried to summon her power of destruction, only for Oretsuki to point his other arm at her and more snakes emerged from his sleeve before wrapping themselves tightly around her. "None of that now," Oretsuki replied as he turned his head back towards Akeno. "I am actually quite curious to see how this new venom I created works on my victims." But just as the multiple snakes were about to bite down, a quick flash of light blinded Oretsuki, followed by several sounds of flesh being cut by a sword. Akeno and Riaz were surprised to find themselves several feet away, with the remains of the dead snakes falling to the ground around them. "Riaz-chan, Akeno-chan, are you both all right?" Turning their head to the voice, smiles formed on their faces when they saw that it belonged to a concerned Naruto who was holding Excalibur in his left hand. "I tried to get here as soon as I could after I ran into some interference, but luckily I got here just in time. I'm glad to see you, though you did worry us quite a bit, Naruto-kun," Riaz said with a smile before it turned into a frown as she grabbed his collar to bring him closer. "After this, you are telling me how you knew about Kuroka being in the area and why you didn't tell me sooner." "Understood, let's just take care of this first," Naruto replied, making Riaz nod her head. Akeno let out a laugh as she summoned some lightning to vaporize the snake corpses. "Don't think about holding out on us. Bucho has given me permission to punish you if you hold anything back." "Understood," Naruto repeated with a bead of sweat falling down the side of his face at the thought of what Akeno would think to call punishment. Glancing down for a split second, the blonde Lucifer let out a sigh before taking off his jacket and held it out to Akeno, who blinked in confusion at his actions. "Your outfits are damaged way too easily." Glancing down at her outfit, Akeno saw what he meant as the upper half of her priestess outfit had several large rips and were revealing a large percentage of her breasts and nipples. Ara, I didn't realize it was that bad. Thank you, Naruto-kun." Taking the jacket, Akeno quickly put it on before zipping up the jacket up to the middle of her chest, leaving a decent amount of cleavage. "A little tight, but I kinda like it. You're really into that stuff, huh?" "Yes, but it isn't the only reason, Fufufu." "Huh," Naruto blinked in confusion at her comment, not noticing Riaz angrily puff her cheeks at Akeno behind him. Shaking his head to clear his mind, Naruto stood up and turned his attention to Oretsuki. "So, you are Oretsuki Bodis. I heard about you and your brother Sutairi, the bastard that ruined Kuroka and Koneko's life. It was that treacherous cat's fault for what happened to her and the other Nekomatas. She should have let my brother do as he pleased," Oretsuki angrily replied as he glared at the blonde. "If you are here, then that means she is here as well. I suppose she would sacrifice her freedom to keep her little sister safe." Naruto narrowed his eyes as he pointed Excalibur at Oretsuki. "If you want to continue this battle, I have no problem finishing this fight." "No, I am very aware of the situation I and my subordinates are in. A few of them are already dead, and if we want to come out of this alive, a tactical retreat is necessary," Oretsuki replied as he lifted up a hand, and the symbol for the House of Bodis appeared over his hand before dispersing. "We will take our leave, but remember this, Riaz Gremory, Naruto Lucifer, our house will stop at nothing to get out revenge on Kuroka and take the lives of her and her sister. Stand in our way and you will become the casualties of our revenge." Slowly, Oretsuki's body started to sink into the floor, the devil letting out a chuckle as his body completely disappeared and left the three alone in the destroyed hallway. "Separate movie theater, I have to admit, you're doing a lot better than I thought you would," Kimimaro said as he stared down at the slightly panting Kiba, breathing hard himself from his spot on higher ground. The white-haired man's attention turned downwards at the several cuts done to him by the holy demonic sword in Kiba's hand. "Before you, only a select few have ever survived my first 3 dances, never mind being able to injure me this badly. I guess I should feel honored," Kiba retorted as he kept his blade up in front of him. As he was about to attack, the House of Bodhi's symbol appeared in front of Kimimaro, causing his opponent to frown before shifting into a normal, relaxed position. "Our battle has come to an end, an unfortunate outcome, but I digress." A magical circle appeared under Kimimaro as he looked back at Kiba. "I am sure we will have our rematch in the future, as long as you and the houses of Gremory and Lucifer protect those 2 Nekomatas. Death will come to the loser, and to the victor, closure." Kiba said nothing as he watched the man teleport away before letting out a breath, stabbing his sword of betrayer into the ground to keep himself on his feet. "That was a dangerous opponent. I'll have to be ready for our next confrontation. We have to keep Koneko safe. I hope the others are all okay." Kiba said to himself before straightening himself and dismissed his sword, turning around to walk away from the battlefield with a determined look on his face. His concern for the others overshadowing the amount of pain he was feeling himself. Secondary hallway, aw man, I guess that is our quest to end this battle. Suigetsu frowned as he looked at his glowing arm before letting out a sigh, his muscular arm returning to normal, just when things were getting interesting. Jugo was silent as he stared down at the back on his hand before pulling it back into his cloak. It seems that Kuroka and Naruto Lucifer have made their appearances. Also, I can sense that Jirobo, Kabuto, and Truma are dead. So, Glasses Boy and Fatty bit the dust, huh? I didn't think that these guys would actually be able to kill them, though I knew that weakling Truma was on borrowed time. Suigetsu replied as Jugo stopped next to him, the white-haired boy turning his attention to Gawain, who still had his sword out while Asiar and Mito made it to his side. Looks like we'll have to postpone our fight for now, but don't worry. I'll be sure to make sure we have our rematch. I'm gonna enjoy cutting you to pieces. We'll see about that. Gawain narrowed his eyes as he dismissed his Excalibur Galatine, watching as a teleportation circle form under Suigetsu and Jugo. Mito's eyebrow twitched as she stared at Jugo with a frown before calling out to him. Hey you big jerk, Jugo said nothing as he stared at Mito, who raised up her index finger at him. Next time you better fight me, because I'm gonna beat you up if you look down at me. Asya worriedly placed a hand on her sister's shoulder in order to calm her down. Come on Mito-chan, the battle over for now. Jugo remained quiet as Mito continued to do her rant, before finally turning his attention to Gawain. Give Ria's Gremory and Naruto Lucifer a message for me. Tell them that to beat Senjutsu, they're going to need a lot of power, and possibly Senjutsu itself. Sure, Gawain replied with a raised eyebrow at the surprisingly helpful comment from the orange-haired man. What the hell kind of message is that, Jugo? Suigetsu questioned as the seal under them glowed brightly before teleporting them away, leaving the three alone in the hallway before they looked at one another with a nod and started heading back to the original theater room. After a few minutes, they managed to return to the room and found everyone gathered around Naruto, Rias, and an unfamiliar woman with black hair, hugging a struggling Koneko tightly to her buxom chest. Asia's attention was quickly focused on Zenobia, who was being healed by Akeno as she sat in one of the seats while an injured Issei sitting next to her, and rushed over to her side to assist with the healing. Smiling at the mental relief of seeing that everyone was still alive, Rias turned her attention back towards Naruto. Alright Naruto, it's time you told us everything, and this time no secrets. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want the next part of this video, subscribe and comment down below and turn on the bell notification, and also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.